65% of your patients or clients are going to be interested in age management. Now, notice I didn't say anti-aging because there is no such thing. We're all aging, and there's many contributions to it. Gravity being one of the biggest, solar keratosis from old man's sun, free radicals, which include chemistry that we put on our skin, things we eat, a whole variety of things go into the age process. We're actually invented to last about 150 years. We're created, our cell structures are created to stay alive as long as possible. And some people have, although the idea of being a shrunken gnome with half my marbles gone, tottering around at 110 is not appealing. But as long as we have our cognitive powers, we can manage age. Many, many years ago, there was a big picture of me on the side of a building in Singapore, trying to look like a GQ model. And underneath the caption was, "Age doesn't matter, looking good does, Danne Montague King." And I think at that time I was something like 58. They were saying looking 30. Okay, fine, I'll accept that. Because I worked hard at it. I worked hard at always looking as good as possible out of curiosity, not out of desperation to stay young. I really don't care about that. It was, what could we do? How could we push the envelope? What's the body capable of doing? And thinking about the tissue around the areola of a woman's breast, tissue on the bum, always being 10 years younger looking than the face, the backs of the hands, and décolleté. And these are things you need to point out to your clients. This is a very good analogy. Yes, when they first come in, you have to gain credibility, especially if you're a young therapist or doctor, and this is a much older client. They're automatically going to be defensive. Number one, because you're young. Number two, because how could you possibly relate to their condition? So your credibility has to establish itself immediately, and that's when you use your technical terminology to scare them. You put the fear factor in. Instead of, well, those lines around your lips, you're going to say the redundant cuticle buildup and the compromised tissue in the oris orbicularis. Oh, wow, that sounds terrible. I'm in more trouble than I thought. You know, that you install in them right away. That's your credibility. But after that, you have to explain to them at their level what they are getting in return for the money they're spending with you on age management and the revision of their problems. The very word that I coined, that very term that I coined many years ago, skin revision, it means bringing things back to the way they were supposed to by nature. Because I said earlier, we're not meant to age as fast as we do. All of these things are against us, yes, but that doesn't mean we can't circumvent them. So you point that out to your clients when they first come in. You diagnose all of the things you see, and that isn't just what they're focusing on. They might be just interested in dark circles or lines around their eyes. These are things they fixate on. Their eyes kind of cloud over when they look in the mirror and they, oh, I still look pretty good except for this. Okay, fine. But that cell structure is attached to the next cell structure, and to the next cell structure, and to the whole body. So what I always did in my early days of private practice is I would diagnose everything. First of all, I would look at their face. They would, of course, tell me, because I would urge them to tell me. I would listen to them about their particular bugaboo, their particular problem that they think that if only that's gone, I'll be fat. I have one lady, a very famous journalist in Beverly Hills, and well, she still is a beautiful woman, but at one time she was a real knockout when she was young. And as smart as she is, and she deals in beauty and writing about film stars and, you know, doing articles and all that, she still imagines that all she needs is a little neck lift and she's going to look 40 again. She's my age, she's 70. That she's going to look 40 again. Just this, I'll just have this done. No, I'm looking at her whole face. I see everything else that should be done at the same time, or at least have a very good, at least 12-week go at DMK skin revision, which, by the way, she is undergoing now. And then maybe she won't even think she needs that. We work very well with a lot of you plastic surgeons out there. We have for a very long time. And the reason that we work well with you is because one of the things that disturbs you the most are hematomas, which you can of course drain, but sometimes they become so copious that even after draining, they leave kind of serrated looking strange tissue. Then you're dealing with a possible slough, hematoma, or I'm sorry, necrosis of tissue, where the hair falls out, all of these little things, scar ramifications. And so pre-surgery and post-surgery treatments can absolutely minimize this to an enormous degree. And that's how we work well with you people. As far as the skin revision therapists, you can take a person that is, let's say 80, because people of 80 are now realizing that life is not over. They're going around saying what everybody else is saying. 80 is the new 60. And in some cases it is. People aren't retired. Well, look at me, I'm not retired, I'm 70. And so they're going to be interested in how much time you can take off them. Some people will put it that way. How many years can you take off me? Well, it's not a question of taking years off. It's a question of maximizing the tissue so it is at its healthiest. Skin cells do have memory, remember that. They will snap back to what they remember they were in a very short period of time. But again, it's the ongoing treatment. You don't just do one off or two off and then give them a lot of home prescriptives and expect that to carry them through. They've got to be sincere about it. They've got to be committed. So in order to get their attention, because a lot of them will not want to think you're going to know what you're talking about because you're 30 years old. Credibility, using technical terminology to diagnose, act like the doctor, and if you are a doctor, that should be pretty easy. And then after that, explain to them how their cells work. What happens when new cells proliferation starts to slow down? What happens when old cells start to build up year after year after year? Empower them with that simple knowledge. This brings them into a secret magical circle with you. You're working with this together and you're going to get results. And that always ends up with dependence. You have a client that is going to be dependent on you for many, 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 many years. We already have this happening in our organization throughout the world for the last 45 years. And I've run into people that, and I'm very honest when I say this, I have to travel to each country every year, at least once. It's getting a little bit harder to do. I just spent 3 weeks in Azerbaijan, Kiev, and several cities in Russia. And I'll constantly run into DMK therapists that I taught and trained 25, 30 years ago. And they look almost the same, unless they've gained weight or something like that. And obviously they've changed hairstyle, but I can always recognize them. I don't remember their names always, but I recognize them. And it's always a shock to me because these are the good people. These are the ones that look like what they're doing. And that's another thing too. I can't emphasize this enough. Look like what you're doing. Now, for me to maintain this appearance at my time of life is not that easy, especially traveling, without the familiarity of my own bathroom and my own bedrooms and all these things. I have to set up like a apothecary. I often wonder what hotel maids think when they come into my bathrooms in these hotels. But I have to do it because this is what I do. How could anybody find me credible if I looked like an old man? And here I'm talking about age management. You have to do the same thing. You owe it to your clientele. You owe it to your patients. You owe it to them. You can't look anything less, or your credibility is simply not going to be there. And I know it takes a little extra time, and I know some of you have kids and other obligations, and some of you are booked up all the time, very popular. So you think, well, I don't have any time for myself. But you are the walking ad. You are the first communication that they see when they come into your clinic. So therefore, you have to establish your age management system on yourself before you even begin to talk to anybody else. Of course, if you're any of you that are under 40, you're not thinking about this right now. So you're the ones that have to sound the most professional, the most credible on the first diagnosis. Then after that, You find yourself in a position of being a psychiatrist, a skin revisionist, a friend, and a hope.